Well, this is a treat because I get to do a podcast with one of my best friends. This is Carlos Quintanilla. Those of you who know and follow Marie and I probably have met Carlos at some time or other.
Probably.
Carlos is here at the Vineyard Houston. That's where we're recording today. And it's where Marie and I are calling home church these days. And Carlos is the missions person here at the church. But he's also like probably the most important person I know in our work in Colombia when it comes to just relationships with all of the pastors and churches and leaders. And I definitely don't want to go without him anywhere Spanish speaking anymore. So,
it's been a great journey. It's been a great journey. It's over 20 years that we've been doing this.
yeah, when was your first time going? I know you married in, so.
I am married to a beautiful lady from Bogota, Colombia. And I started visiting Colombia when we first got married. But even before that, I worked with a local church called Church on the Rock. And they were planting a church in Bogota. And it's called Casa Roca. It's still there. And they couldn't call it church. And so that's why it's called Casa Roca, because the only church in Colombia that could be called a church was the Catholic Church.
Really?
Then we had a couple of Christian senators, and they amended the Constitution. So we could now be called, although because of who we are, a church planting movement, we've decided to call it, we have different names, but yes, it's been great. And now the first time I went with the Vineyard was with Bruce Wimberly and Elaine. And we were at a conference in Costa Rica. And I've told you this story before. The first day that I go to a conference, I don't like to minister. I like to just be ministered. And so I was asking God for a hug. You've been there in places where Lord, I just want a hug from you. And somebody came and tapped me on the shoulder, right here. And this man says, God sent me to give you a hug. That was Bruce. I mean, I was bawling. I'm thinking, wow, the Spirit of God. And then, we became friends. And then he invited me to go to Maine to a partnership meeting. They only had, at the time, a very few countries. And that's how he hooked me. And it was made in heaven. It was visiting people there. We started in Medellin. And then I took one of the pastors from here, Bill Laswell, and he prophesied over the church in a Popular.
Wow.
And that prophecy has come to pass. Because with the encounters, El Duque, as he is known there, El Duque, the encounters have placed La Viña en el Popular. Now, a place where Pablo Escobar used to get his henchmen.
Rough area.
Yeah, it was a rough area when we first started going. But now it's a delight. And that's where we had our first encounter last year. 98 people signed up last year.
Yeah.
160 people signed up this year.
Yeah.
And we're hoping next year will be 200 or more.
Yeah, that's hard for people to grasp, is the work Vineyard's been doing in Colombia I went the first time with a Vineyard group in 1992.
Ooh.
So there's been work going on. Now, back then we didn't plant churches. So when we would go in then, many of you would kind of follow the Wimber Signs and Wonders type conferences and things that were going on back in those days. We just took some of those into Colombia. We'd go in soccer stadiums and
with thousands of people.
You can appreciate this because he knows better than anybody that my Spanish is awful. But I memorized worship sets in Spanish.
Wow.
So I could go and sing and lead worship.
The male Eddie Gourmet. For those panchos, I don't speak Spanish. Just
I
saying.
knew nothing. I didn't know what I was saying in about half those songs. But then it would finish and we go into ministry and people would begin to speak to me in Spanish and I was no comprenda. And they look at me like, what?
You just finished a whole set in Spanish. What's wrong with you?
That doesn't compute. But that was in the early 90s. We would do it that way. And then we weren't planting churches. I don't know exactly when we began to plant churches, but I know that it changed the dynamics quite a lot because we didn't do those stadium events anymore.
One of those events you had was in Cienega, which is near Santa Marta,
right?
Which basically was the first Vina was in Santa Marta,
mm-hmm.
and Cienega is nearby. Well, I want to let you know that right now, as we speak, there is not a church plant in Cienega, and I thought that is so funny that now we're going back to our roots. And through a couple of people that are there, and it's been an incredible journey. It has been. You talked earlier about worship being a journey. Well, this has been a journey. Different players, but God is just raising new leaders.
Yeah,
and it is those kids that we used to minister
that's right.
are now attorneys, social workers. Some of them are working with the government.
Mm-hmm.
So God has a unique team right now in place.
It is. It hasn't been that long that there was, we were planting churches while there's still cartels. We're planting churches while there's still civil war.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it has not been that long since that stuff sort of lifted. Right.
We couldn't drive.
We couldn't drive between cities.
We could only fly, and even flying was. I mean, I remember one of the trips we arrived with Bill in Medellin, and the pastor started crying, and I said, what's wrong? And he says, well, usually when they hear the news, because here in America, either the news would start with something in Colombia or end with something in Colombia. So it was always bad, the bombs, this and that. And so people would say, well, we're going to have to reschedule. And we did not. We went ahead and showed up. And those guys at the time, it was funny. When we arrived, Bill and I, we did not have a ponytail. And so they looked at us funny because both pastors had a ponytail. Well, there's a pastor from Seattle that had visited them before we went, and he had a ponytail. And so they figured that in order to be a vineyard pastor, you had to wear long hair with a ponytail.
And you had to have flip-flops and a Hawaiian shirt.
And a Hawaiian shirt. Well, hey, I'm still wearing Hawaiian shirts anyway.
I think every pastor, every vineyard pastor anywhere in the world wore a Hawaiian shirt back through the 90s.
Yes.
It was required because that's what John Wimber did.
That's what John Wimber used.
So we all did that.
That and drank the Diet Coke. Because he said if you drink Diet Coke, now that's when the Holy Spirit would show up.
Yeah. But we get these churches now, though, and we know the stories, but the folks who follow this stuff, they don't know some of those stories. Like we got pastors and leaders who have been in war, have been
absolutely
commanders. We have some that have, at least in some part of their lives, been recruited. But these are some of the folks that's the history. That's what we've dealt with. You've got regional stuff, Civil War created, regional tensions, and some of the challenges over the years have just been getting people from different parts of that country to be able to come together in the Lord. And
it reminds me of the story of Paul and Apollos.
Yeah.
I mean, you had these two groups. Pastor from Bogota had friends, and he planted those churches. And then we had Pastor and Javier in Medellin, and he planted churches. And they were like the train tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all doing the same thing, but it was very hard to get together. I remember being on the plane with Elaine and Bruce, and they said, hey, there's 3 different cultures that we're going to visit. And it was very true. The Bogota had a way of doing things very similar to the way we do it here. And then we went to Medellin, and Medellin said that they thought of themselves as the corner of the world. They were doing all the talking. We were listening. And then we went to the coast. And then the coast, it was like, well, if we can't do it today, we'll do it tomorrow. Let's just party and have a good time. And it was like, okay. So these three entities were together, but they were not working together in unity. And that's what we are now.
That's what we're seeing now.
So seeing now, and it's what gets me so excited to hear that that they're just, as we speak, they're in a recording studio by one of the members of the church in Medellin, and they are recording the first single of a new CD, and they're already looking at it's going to be on Spotify, on iTunes, all this stuff that for years that was not possible.
Yeah, we just got amazing people there that love the Lord, and it's just there's been so many challenges over the years that were not anybody's fault, just tensions of that whole atmosphere sometimes, and it has begun to see it coalesce, and you're starting to see the synergy as people start working together.
Absolutely.
And it's very exciting right now. Listen, when we were there, last month?
Yeah.
I think I was introduced to at least 2 people planting churches I had no idea we had going. Right?
That's true. That is true. And there was one team that could not make it because there was a volcano and they had to be evacuated. And so that group didn't show up. But as we speak, a pastor and his wife are getting everything ready to move into that area. And they will be working in both the city of Manizales and an outreach that they have on the outskirts of town. And that is that's being done as we speak. So, La Calera was also new.
Yeah, so I think we've got, and it changes on me regularly, I think we've got 6 established churches and at least 2, maybe 3 that I expect will manifest fully this year.
Absolutely.
So I think by the end of the year, we'll likely have 9 or 10.
Yes. The number is 10. The number is that we're looking at that it would be 10.
So that's incredible. That's exciting. Again, like I said, we've seen it come and go over the years, but right now it feels like there is a momentum and God has favored it, and the people are, their leaders there are so good, and young leaders raising up.
And the young leaders are the ones that are networking to make this a reality, that they could come together, that they could work together. As I said, they're in the studio, but there's 2 different churches. And I saw the list of people that donated so that this project can come to pass. And it's incredible. Everyone is participating. Now they're not thinking of their city. They're thinking of Vina, Colombia.
Yes.
And we keep talking about it. Marie opened this year a conference with you. And it's all about how we can empower the women there also, which is very, 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 very important for a movement. And so we will continue to drill this, to empower them and to show them that they can do it. I long for the day when you and I can just sit in the back and watch them do this. And I hope the day will happen soon.
Yeah. Having grandchildren's fun.
Oh, it is.
And I look forward to the day we get to just be grandparents and watch this thing go.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's close.
It is very, very close. This morning I was talking to Wilson Marin, and he is also part of the team that was part of the Medellin group that work with Pablo Escobar and all those. And he married a doctor. They live in Switzerland. He is multilingual. And he was just, thrilled to share some of the things that God is doing there. So we all come together with the work through Switzerland, the U.S., and we want to continue to see this grow.
Well, just quickly, I want to ask you, because you've been most anywhere I have in Colombia and most of South America in the last 20 years. I think we first hooked up in 2006 or something.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite story? So it comes to mind, maybe your favorite single story. I should have warned you of that question.
Gosh, I have several stories, but I I would remind people to continue to pray. We still do not have a Vina in Paraguay and Uruguay. So if anybody that is watching this feels a call to any of these two countries,
Call Missions Mobilizer.
Please do so, because we want to go there too. Funny stories. We have, I mean, gosh, so many, but we were in downtown Medellin, and I see this motorcycle family coming down the hill. And it was 5 people on the motorcycle. It was mother and the father.
It was a small motorcycle.
Yeah, it was 3 girls, a speaker, and the Bibles. And that was Javier and Ida. I had no idea that today the guy that I saw coming down that hill with his 3 daughters are now, they're all serving the Lord in different capacities. And it's just such a joy that they didn't want us to go there. And they used all the excuses in the world not to take us up to the Popular, which is the area of town, very rough at the time. Now it's probably one of the safest. And it's hard to park because everybody now has a car there. Did you notice that? It's packed with cars and people. Everybody has a job, and so God has blessed and prospered the area incredibly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you jumping on with me. That makes me, it just makes my day to have you with me on this.
Absolutely. And hey, if people want to donate,
there you go.
Please, come on.
Absolutely.
We need more volunteers. We need more churches. And we need more people that are willing to come in and adventure with us what Jesus is doing.
It is good, and it is fun. It's been fun, and it's still fun.
It is.
So bless you. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Ciao.